Welcome to the Glow Interviews. My name is Katie Oman and I am an author, psychic, motivational speaker and coach. The Glow Interviews is a place where we can meet some amazing and talented people who are a real light in the darkness. By talking to them, I know we will all be left feeling empowered, inspired and hopeful for a brighter future. All of the contact details for myself and my featured guests will be in the description box below. So do feel free to reach out if you want to know more. Today's guest is author, coach and podcaster Ebonie Allard. She is the writer of the phenomenal book Misfit to Maven, the story of to Ah. In 2011, she won Coach of the Year at the International Coaching Awards and she hosts the podcast Adulting with Ebonie, home of kick-ass and kind conversations. I am absolutely thrilled that she's agreed to have this conversation with me today. Welcome, Ebonie, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Katie. It's so weird to have someone read your bio, isn't it?
Yeah. You're like, I'm pretty amazing, actually.
Person.
Bless you. How you doing? You good?
I am really good, yeah.
Good, good. So, let's be real, 2020 has been pretty crazy. I reckon it's the craziest year in living memory, certainly mine. So, come on, give us your tips. How have you been coping? And are there any blessings you found in this chaos that we've been living through?
Oh, yes, of course. Part of that actually is that so this time last year, I started having some nudges, some what I love to call soul nudges of like, time to do this, it's time to move. And so I moved to Spain from the UK.
Wow.
And my stuff arrived on the 7th of March and I arrived on the 15th of March and official lockdown was like the 11th. And so I was literally on the last train into Spain.
Goodness.
And that felt very, and has continued to feel incredibly divine in terms of knowing where I needed to be and following, like really obeying. Like one of my greatest strengths, I would say, is obeying when I hear that, right? Rather than just like, like okay. I like really discern when it's something I need to do.
Yeah.
And so how I've been coping is by being in the sunshine. My lifelong dream was to have a swimming pool in my garden, and I now have that. And so being in the water every day, spending time outside, really connecting with my breath and with my body and allowing myself to reset my nervous system and understand that I am in control of how I feel and how I show up in my response, is really how I have been managing this time. And then in terms of the like real gems, those real blessings, has actually been to choose to shift into a place of really nurturing our community rather than trying to grow it or like go full on new products or pivot or any of this crazy kind of external energy that I've seen a lot of people doing of like, okay, I need to push with everything. For us, it was like, okay, how can we move more into yin? How can we like really give more in order to receive more? Like where does our attention need to be right now? And so I actually shifted from the company being me to bringing in Jonathan as my business partner, merging our businesses together. We doubled down and we offered everybody in our community double coaching for the rest of the year. And so everyone went from having, 12 sessions with me to 24 sessions and with him and with me, so they had masculine and feminine energy, and we just really went there, and the returns on that have been incredible. Like it's just been so beautiful to be in a place where I know that I am supported, that this is for us, not happening to us, all of the things, and allowing us to really go beyond the intellectual on it into a place of really embodying it and living it and being that, walking our talk around what it means to show up for your community and to lean in and all of those things. And so the gems have just been seeing people transform, seeing them, seeing their nervous systems settle, seeing them create and put out work into the world that they've been too scared of to do before. Like it's just been such a beautiful year, really.
It has. I do feel that, although it's been like a lot of fear energy, obviously. I do find a lot of people have been happy to get off the hamster wheel and kind of align more with themselves, you know?
And that's what fear energy is best for, right?
Yeah,
Like if we look at it, fear energy, you know, is the same frequency as excitement, and you can use it as fuel to do
yeah,
something different, to change something, or to, you know, to really motivate us to move in some
mm,
ways. I personally feel like fear gets a really bad rap, and it's much better than we give it credit for.
yeah, absolutely. It's just your intention of how you come to it, right? It's just energy. Everything's energy, right? It's what you do with it that counts. Absolutely. So, what led you to the work that you're doing then? What was your kind of your springboard, your launching pad? How did you end up in this crazy place that you're living in now?
I don't know. I put one foot in front of the other. I have never had a real job. And for years, I thought that made me not a proper entrepreneur. It's hilarious, isn't it? The stories, the mind games that we tell ourselves. And I remember sitting in a coffee shop in Brighton with my friend Elle and saying to her, but I'm not a real entrepreneur. Like, I've never had a proper job in my life. Like, I've never worked for a corporate. I've never I've never had a salary. I've never had, and she was just like, how does that make you not a proper entrepreneur? Like, tell me where your mind went here. And so, you know, I worked in the film industry. I then had like my own personal assistant company with
Mm,
like one of the first virtual assistant companies in the
yeah,
UK. And then kind of had my own burnout in the TV world, and then a kind of breakdown in running my first business. Wound up in Bali. Bali, I always say, saved my life, because I was like, I need to rest, I need to recuperate, I need some space. I had been in education and then working my
yeah,
whole life. I had a gap. So I took a like pause in Bali, and within 6 weeks I'd recreated my entire life, and
right.
had 6 entrepreneurs that I was working for and making them lots of money, and they were all spiritual and this and that and the other. And I had this kind of realization that wherever I was in the world, I would still be there, right? Like, I
Yeah.
am the common denominator here. And it was at that point that I made the shift into coaching and understanding that that's what I'd actually done my whole life. That I was a really good um, coach. And more recently, that's shifted into priestess, because actually what I do is I am a mirror and a channel, right? And so
Yeah.
the way that I coach is to show you what I see
Mm,
and translate the divine into words that you can understand for
yeah.
yourself. And so it's kind of just been a journey and a natural evolution of being a misfit, understanding what it means to be Maven, which my definition of the word is an old Hebrew word, and it was given to me in a dream by my grandma when I was starting to write the book. She said, this is the word that you want to use. And Maven is an expert by experience, and it's someone who can hold two truths in the palm of one hand.
Wow.
And for me, that is where the world is headed. We need to be in a space where we can hold multiple truths at the same time, rather than seeing it as like this or that, but really being like, there's a unity in holding
Mm.
our. And so it's my dharma, it's my purpose, and it makes no sense. I just put one foot in front of the other, and I trust that the work I'm here to do will provide for me and for others.
I like that. Two truths in one hand, because the world is so polarity, isn't it? We think, you know, young, old, black, white, good, evil, but actually most of the world is actually the grey middle bit. It's kind of, it's both. It's neither either or nor. It's both things together all the time. You know, you don't tend to get like one thing that's like perfectly pure in what it is. It always has other stuff put on top of it. So,
And throughout time, we have been uh, socialized to make things black and white, so that they are
mm,
so that as binary things are much easier to understand. You know,
yeah,
holding a spectrum is much more complex.
mm,
And for those of us that talk about or understand or have heard the idea that we're moving from 3D into 5D, for me that is the thing, right? We're moving from having something, you know, having a binary existence, into a place where we've got a much more spherical and spectrum of an idea. And what happens
yeah,
is, you know, there's all this talk at the moment about how the kind of spiritual world and the kind of fascists are much closer than you think. And it's like, well, if instead of being linear, we're looking at a sphere, and everything's much closer than you think, because it could be, you know, we've got this spectrum. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent, but all of these things, like, the world is shifting and changing, and so who I am and how I show up will do, and so will everybody else, right?
Yeah, but I think that's good, because I think, like I say, it makes the world more authentic. I think it brings people into more alignment with, rather than who they think they're supposed to be, who they actually are and who they actually want to be, you know, rather than, like you say, those stories and those labels that we all get, we put on ourselves, but also other people put on us as well, you know, that you can't be that, or you can't do that and that. It's like you have to be one thing, or you have to be this. So it frees you. I think it gives people a lot more freedom, you know.
Yeah, and in Misfit to Maven, I talk about that in so much more depth, because, you know, I chose the film industry for a reason, and I chose it because I wanted to be normal, I wanted to fit in, I wanted a salary, I wanted nice cars, you know, I wanted a certain life, and I believed that that was my path to it. And the reality was that I was, you know, made for more, and it wasn't going to contain me. And using my emotional guidance scale and my body and listening to what was happening to me in that space is what led me down a different path, and kind of enabled me to course correct and come back to, okay, well, who am I really, and what is really working for me, and why do I feel the need to stay out and party all night, or to not tell the truth, or to present in a certain way? This can't be good for me. What can I do to bring me back to the core and the truth of who I really am?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So you say you've mentioned your book a couple of times. I read it a few years ago, and I was like, yes, it's a book for me. It literally feels like you were having a conversation with me on the page, you know, because it encourages us to be true to ourselves in terms of work and business. It doesn't matter how quirky you are, how individual you are. You know, it's not about, you know, you have to look a certain way or behave a certain way. You just have to be you. So what are your biggest tips for doing this, the people watching this? How can they be true to who they are and still kind of do their job and show up and align with that? That's a big question.
And the first part of that, and it's so interesting to me, because that book was now published 5 years ago, which means at the end of it was 7 years ago. And I have several other books in the pipeline that aren't finished. And I still get messages from people who are reading it and being like, oh my God. And I had a really unusual childhood and a really unusual life. And the amount of people that read it who say, just like you did, it feels like you're having a conversation with me, and like, where were you in my teens? Like, I don't understand how you felt the same. And so for the people who really resonate with that space, it is about understanding who you are. And most of us have grown up really understanding who everybody else is. And really spending our time and attention, for whatever reason, mostly to do with safety, getting really clear on who everyone else is. And that's a lot of what our skill is like understanding what's your needs, how do I placate you, what do you need, what do you need? And the world now calls that people pleasing, but actually it's safety, right? Like, actually what you're doing is you're creating space for yourself by taking care of everybody else first. Which is one way of doing it, but it means that you'll never get to you, because a bit like washing up, it is endless, and there will always be somebody else to take care of before you take care of yourself. So the biggest tip I have really is to shift that hierarchy round and to start with you, and to start with understanding what it is that you need, what it, like, from a really basic, like, human needs place. How much sleep do you need? What food works for you? How much space do you need to think? And to what's your operating style? How fast do you like to work? What do you enjoy? What do you want to wear? Like, who do you like spending your time with? All of these things, if you don't know them, and you're going along with what has been prescribed for you, you're doing so from a place of abdicating responsibility, because it is easier to do what other people are doing than it is to really spend the time figuring out what works for you. But figuring out what works for you is the best investment of time and money you will ever spend, because once you have figured that out, once you can operate truly from a full cup, which is such a cliche, but as soon as you can operate from that place, there's so much more space for everybody else, and then you really can show up for them without taking away from yourself in order to do so.
Absolutely. A good friend of mine gave me the cup and saucer analogy, where you fill up your cup so much that it overflows onto the saucer, and you give the saucer to other people. So therefore your cup is never empty. you always have enough left for yourself. And I was like, oh God, I love that. It's like it's like a huge aha moment for me, as Oprah would say. I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. Because as a woman, especially, I was constantly scraping that cup, constantly like every drop to other people,
Yeah, and then so the next level on that for me, if we're using the cup and saucer analogy, is I was filling my cup with water when what I wanted was like coffee or juice or wine. Like what is in your cup is also really important. What's the quality of the time and the energy and the attention and the focus and all of those good things that you're filling that cup with? What's the quality of them? And so that's that next place of going into like, you know what, I actually deserve like the time or the best or the thing. And one of the things that I see time again with my people is hearing this stuff and then making it look like you're doing it by ticking the boxes of it, right? From this kind of place. And I'm like, I'm filling my cup. Look, I have a coach and I have a massage and I did this thing. Yes. But how present are you in it, right? How much you're allowing it to really sink into your body and your bone, your soul, and every part of you, rather than just being another thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that, because I think we've all been guilty of that to some level. We all do. You read books or watch programs or do courses, and it's like it stays here, and so you get it on a mindful, on a logical level, but to actually push it down into your heart and soul and embody it and it become part of you is a whole different connection to it. So of course the education system guides you to stay up here. That's the problem. So it takes a lot of work, I think, for people to really look at things from a different way. And of course you're not going to with everything that you connect with, but I think those things that really resonate with you and hit you in the heart and soul, those are the things that are like signposts going, pay attention, this is important.
Yeah, and then for me, like surrounding yourself by the right people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where it's being modeled to you, where it's normal to do that. It's going to be so empowering and mean that you actually start to embody it, because we have our mirror neurons fire, because we become like the 5 people spend the most time with. So if we're around all these people that are actually embodying this stuff, and I've been talking a lot recently about not caring what other people think of you. And lots of people look at me and they're like, of course you don't care what other people think of you. Look at you. I'm like, I can see on a surface level, it might look like I don't care what people think of me, but I really do, right? Like it's such a thing. I really struggle with how I am perceived.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. And I also recognize how much work I get to do around that in order to release it. And so when you're then around other people where they are challenging their edge, or they're doing something or saying something or using their voice or holding a no or a boundary, or doing these things, actually embodying it, means that we watch them do it and go, wow, if you can do that, I can do it, I'm going to do it too. And we gee each other up into this space where it becomes the norm to take care of ourselves, to hold a boundary, and to care less about what other people think, because we really recognize that what other people think is about them and not us.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with that one. So, 4th question. What do you wish you'd known now when you started out?
That it's a long game, and that I often use the gym analogy on this, right? When you go to the gym or you work out or you spend time, physically training, nothing ever gets lighter, nothing ever gets easier, you just get stronger.
Yes.
And the idea that you might, stop going, stop working out, stop moving your body, stop in and maintain a result is ludicrous. And the other, that it would at some point just become easy and there'd be no effort involved. If I could really accept both of those things and understand that I would be in my business gym every day for the rest of my life, I might have picked things that I enjoyed from earlier, rather than going, I'm going to do the hard thing because I'll get there quicker. I don't know that logic works. I did it, and I know a lot of people who do it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Actual activities that I enjoy in my day-to-day more often, and I would have really understood I was in it for the long term, and that I wanted to build something slowly, year on year, rather than trying rather than listening to all the stuff out there that says, you know, are you at 6 figures yet? Are you at 7? How about 8? Like, whoa, right? Slow down, stop paying attention to what anybody else is doing. Does it feel good for you? And am I committed to doing this for the rest of my life and increasing the quality of my life, the quality of my clients' lives, and the rewards on that incrementally over time?
Absolutely, because you have to be, it doesn't, money is important, obviously, we all need it, but I think a lot of people come to work from a money perspective, and it's all about how much money you can make and when you can make it and this lifestyle. But like you say, if you don't have a passion for the work that you do, even on the really bad, crappy days where it's not happening and things are going wrong and it's dead stressful, then it's like, if you don't love what you do, it doesn't really matter how much money you're earning, because it's going to be so much harder to show up. Whereas if you love what you do, those bad days, yeah, they're still pretty crap, but it's like you still have that passion and that drive to keep showing up. And I do believe that if you do what you love, the money will follow. I really do believe that. So
yeah, I think that money is a byproduct rather than the product, and getting really clear that the product actually is increased energy. Shows up in multiple different forms, which can show up in health or love or, you know, prosperity and abundance show up in a plethora of ways. And if we're only focused on one, we can often miss all of this other stuff that's coming into us, and then block our channel to more joy and more abundance and more prosperity.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, tough question. What's been your biggest failure to date, and what did it teach you? Because we focus a lot on the positive, and not just in the interview. I think a lot of people focus on the positive and empowerment, but I think there's huge lessons in failure. I don't actually believe in the word failure. I think rejection is redirection. I think it's taking you closer to where you're supposed to be. But it's a huge lesson, and people don't like to talk about it because it's negative and it's like, but it's really important.
I'm always happy to talk about the things that didn't work. And I think for me, because I've come so far in terms of the word or my relationship with the word failure, I find it really difficult, because in the end, nothing is a failure. It is, like you said, it has taken me in a different direction, or all of that. And there are so many that I could give, right? Like, I started my business from £25,000 worth of debt, essentially living out of my car and on friends' sofas, and that was off the back of the film industry. And if I hadn't got myself, and that was, you know, my own doing, for various reasons, but if I hadn't made those mistakes, if I hadn't got myself into that much debt, there is no way that I would have used that fear energy to catapult me into a place where I decided that I was not staying there and that I was going to get so far in the other direction.
Yeah.
And sometimes those huge failures are so important, because they show us what we're tolerating and help us shift or flick a switch into, I'm not willing to tolerate that anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another one, I'm going to give you one more, much more recently. It was still a couple of years ago, but I ran a program, I designed a program called Claiming the Castle, which was all about stepping into queen energy and being a sovereign being. And there was a castle that I wanted to run this retreat in that was near me at the time. And I did all the things. But what I didn't do is I didn't test my market with it, test the language with it, and like put it out and be like, who wants to come and do this retreat with me or this program with me, called Claiming the Castle, and la la la. I put it all together and put it out there before I tested whether or not people wanted it, because I really, really wanted to do it. And so that program ended up costing me a fortune, because renting the castle took all of the money that I made on the people, and it didn't land with people. I got a lot out of it, but it was too early in my business growth for me to be using that language with the people. Like, I hadn't created the audience for that.
Yeah.
And I also look at it now and go, you know what, that was never my archetype. Like, I actually am much more priestess vibes than I am queen vibes for those. Like, it will land with you or it won't, but it wasn't landing, right? Like, what I was shifting and sharing with people wasn't true, and felt like a push, and felt like something I wanted to do for me, rather than was completely aligned. And I can't explain it any more than that, because I also got so much out of it. got so
Mm.
much out of it being hard and difficult, and little things like I paid one of my best friends to come and do the food, and she brought her son and her husband looked after my godson, and so there was so much out of it. It was great, but from
Yeah.
a business perspective, it was complete failure, and I made a massive financial loss.
I feel you. I really do. It's funny, on your Facebook, they show your memories from this day years ago. And 2 years ago, I ran a happiness workshop. I just brought out my happiness book. I was like, and I'd done angel workshops before. So I thought, well, it was a natural thing for me to then do a happiness workshop. And I put loads of effort in, loads of money, loads of time, loads of energy. And I promoted it loads, and I put it all over social media, and I had posters up and everything. I had one. I had one person show up, and I was like, at the lunchtime, I ran over to my mum and I was crying, going, I'm rubbish, I can't do this. But actually, it showed me that I was doing it because I thought that's what I should do, rather than doing it because I really felt it and embodied it and because I wanted to do it. I was up here. I was overthinking and thinking, well, I've done this before, therefore I should go and do it again, rather than actually going, is this really what you want to do? And if I just stopped and thought about that, I would have gone, do you know what, not really. But I wasn't being honest with myself, and consequently, the universe kicked me up the ass.
Yeah, for me, it was a real transition period between, what I was doing then was still really in a place of shoulds, and the language I was using was like, I help you with your business, right? And now it's like, I work with people who want freedom, and that might be through a business.
Yeah.
But the work that I do is much more around healing your shadows, alchemizing energy, and moving into magic. And so there's so much more of the language that I use. It's very much around healing, transformation, transmutation, magic, all of that stuff. And I wasn't using that language then. I was really still very much in kind of patriarchal language, very business language, very surface and head brain language. And I had to move through that to get to where I am now. And sometimes these things cost me money. And the thing is, I could have gone and spent that money with a coach, or I could go and have an experience and learn it. And my brain would have been like quite happy to give that money to a coach for that lesson. But it felt less good when it felt like it was a financial flop, because it didn't have the outcome I expected or wanted. And ultimately, all a failure is something that isn't giving you the outcome you expected or desired.
Yeah, but it's like you say, there's always a lesson and a blessing. We always try and find it. Sometimes you have to look really, really hard, right? Sometimes it's not immediately obvious. And sometimes you have to let some time go past before you can look back and then go, oh, now I get it.
That's when that happened, or this shift changed, or I met this person. It could be all sorts of things. And often, like you say, it's not immediately available.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So if you could go back and speak to your 18-year-old self, what would you say?
Stop. Can I swear?
Of course you can. Christ almighty, I'm Scouser. I still have like punctuation, honey. You feel free, you carry on.
Stop giving a fuck what anyone thinks of you. My entire life at that point was dictated by what people thought of me. And, on the one hand, it was, I kind of moved away from the popular group or like the social norms, and had moved into kind of different groups, but then I still cared what that group thought of me. Like, I looked like, on the outside, it looked like I was subversive, and I didn't care, and I didn't give a fuck, and I was my own person. But I just gave my power away to a whole other group of people.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that comes with maturity. I think that comes with learning to who you are and accept yourself and like yourself. I think you have to like yourself first. And I don't think that happens at a young age. I think that comes from experience, and those knocks and those bumps and those fails and the lessons. I think it is part of the journey. I really do. Certainly in my experience anyway.
And I think that's shifting. And I think that I see my friends who are parents consciously parenting in a way that means that their kids like themselves and see themselves as their own authority. I think that there's also a group that were like themselves and see themselves as their own authority with a lot of entitlement. And I think that when they're coming out the other side, where there's this balance of, it's okay for me to love myself and to love you equally, and for us to all have this space and there be enough for all of us, rather than it be kind of stand on each other to get to the top, which is not serving anyone.
Absolutely. I mean, my 8-year-old daughter goes, "Mummy, accept your gorgeousness."
Quite, exactly.
I've been schooled by an 8-year-old. It's great. Bless her.
Yeah, and then we need to watch them, because I want to see when the tipping point comes, because at some point it will come, and then we can use their words back on them, and it will be really fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially when she's a teenager. I'm making notes right now. Bless her. So your new venture is called Fire and Flow, and it sounds fascinating. I was reading about it this morning. I was like, oh my God, this sounds amazing. So can you tell everybody what it is and how it came about?
Yeah, I would love to. So Fire and Flow is a one-off thing that I am feeling really called to do, where I'm essentially calling in a group of fiery, spiritual, magic women who are healing in their own way, who somewhere have a link to or feel a link to the healer, the wounded healer. And I know that those women are often fiery and passionate and strong, and are fearful of their own power, fearful of their fire, see it as something that is out of control, crazy, too much, too intense, rather than seeing it as the heart of the community, rather than seeing it as the thing that alchemizes and cooks our food and that gives us warmth. And often they end up in circles where they are the strongest women in the group and are lent on and find it very difficult to lean back. So I'm creating a container with strong women who, for the first time in their lives, will be held by the other women in the group, where they can show up fully and completely in their magic and in their fire. And that we will start to investigate, where are the places where you allow yourself to burn out? Where are the places that you're not feeding yourself the right fuel in whatever way that is? And what would it look like to be in this kind of fire and flow space where you can show up fully in your passion, fully with all of your energy and magic, and not give it away, but keep some for you. And one of the reasons for that is that my company is really, really growing. And so I now have 2 companies. I've got Misfit for Life, which I'm growing into a community company where it's much more of a coaching and education company, where we help people alchemize their shadows and create freedom and belonging in their own lives in whatever way that looks. And then I started Ebonie Unlimited, which is my new company and my new space where I get to really teach aspects of magic. And so I'm going to be teaching numerology and universal laws and alchemy and all of these wonderful things over there. And in order to do that, I wanted to call in a circle of women who I could teach absolutely everything I know and have to, who also have things that they will bring and teach us, so that I can genuinely lead from the center without being like this on a pedestal woman, but really like hold this circle together. And then we can be a circle where, you know, you come in and maybe you meet me or you meet one of the other women and we're not quite the right magic for you or not quite the right healer for you. So we can recommend to each other within this circle and really pull in some really powerful stuff together. So we start really, really soon. We start on the 22nd of September. Wow. And what's been so interesting for me is that I was going to start at the beginning of August, and my ego was like, it's going to be then, it's going to be in Leo season, that's what needs to happen. And it hasn't worked out that way. And I have really allowed my ego to go, okay, I'm going to step out of the way. If I didn't have to start it when I said I was going to start it, what would this look like? And I've allowed it to flow a little bit more. And the women that are stepping in are surprising me and just making me feel so excited about the year that I get to spend with them.
Sounds amazing. I think it needs more of it in the world. I think, you know, I held Rise last year, which was a female empowerment day where we had speakers and there were 60 women in the room. And it's just, there's something about women coming together without judgment, without assumptions, I think, and just holding space and being together and being in that space together. the real magic is created. You know, if you drop all that, you know, she's looking at me, she's wearing that, who's she going out with, blah, 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 all that, you know, stuff that we've been taught to be suspicious of other women and judgmental and envious, and just allow ourselves to be together. I do really believe there's magic in that.
There's so much magic in that. And there's so much magic in the circles, right? Coming together with a specific intention and holding space for one another and having each other's backs. And being in a room, you know, whether that's virtual or not, where people can hold it for you when you can't.
Yeah.
And I have been in circles of this caliber. You know, it's a high investment, both in financially and energetically, in time, all of those things. And I've been in circles like that for the last 5 years, and they have fundamentally changed my life, because I have been able to soften, I've been able to lean in. I've got a bed on every continent, which is wonderful. But I also have women who I can send my clients to, whose work I know intimately.
Yeah.
And that is going, you know, that takes so much pressure off me needing to be everything to everybody. Yeah, and absolutely. That thing that we were saying right at the beginning about like wanting the best for people around me, I can now deliver that without delivering it personally.
Yeah.
And that's so magic. It's absolutely my favorite thing, to be able to recommend my friends and to pass work their way, and to, yeah, because we're all in it together.
Yeah, absolutely. We really, really are. So, my darling girl, last question. So these interviews are called the Glow interviews because I wanted to inspire other people and light everybody up. So, in essence of that, what is the thing that lights you up?
So much, but mostly being around people I love, and fire and water. So it's like it's those elemental things, and having them around me. So, you know, my perfect day is lighting up the barbecue, around the fire, having my family, my close friends, my soul family around, spending time together, not needing to be anywhere in particular, and being silly, you know, like, I had my goddaughter here for 3 weeks, and she's got this dance move that is essentially a ninja pirate. I don't understand it, but it's hilarious and it makes me laugh so much. And it's like it's just allowing myself to fully be with them in that moment, being silly, being playful, and having a company and inspiring and mentoring and allowing other people to have companies that support them in doing that, and being able to have quality time with their families and friends.
Well, you certainly lit me up today, sweetheart, and I thank you so much for chatting with me, for empowering me. I feel like I want to go out there and just climb Everest. Maybe not today, I might save that for tomorrow, but let's go.
It's my pleasure, and it's so beautiful to chat with you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
With everybody, you know, there's everyone that you're calling in is has got their own light and so much of it to share. And
oh, definitely.
Watching it needs to really understand that you have that too. You know, that there's nothing special or different about us, that you have access to this as well.
Exactly, exactly. Well, if you'd like to know more about Ebonie, like I say, all her contact details will be in the description box, so check that out. But otherwise, we send you all our love, both of us, and I hope you have a wonderful day.